If your inspection program is not recognizing workers for a job well done, and it's only pointing out the things that they're doing wrong, you're going to have a problem. One thing you need to do is use your inspection program to recognize employees that are executing at a high level. And then on the flip side, when you do identify those unsafe conditions or unsafe behaviors, how do you approach those things, right? Approach them as a coachable moment. It's a really important interaction that can't be replaced by any technology. In that moment, how do you address that with the worker? Is it punitive, or is it an opportunity to coach and teach and make sure that those same types of exposures don't occur again?
This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Dave, welcome to Construction Genius.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I'd like you to introduce yourself to our audience here. Let us know a little bit about yourself and your background in construction.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dave Tibbetts, I'm the Chief Safety Officer at Highwire currently. Highwire is a platform that delivers risk insights to our clients so they understand, what they can expect from their contractors. I think we may talk about that a little bit more later here today, Eric. But so I've been in construction safety for over 20 years. Prior to joining Highwire, I was at Harvard University, where I managed the construction safety program for the last few years of my time. And really what we were trying to deliver there was, Harvard did about $500 million of construction every year. And that meant a lot of projects, a lot of risk, a lot of contractors. And so really involved working with the Harvard project teams, with our general contractors and construction managers collaboratively, trying to deliver successful outcomes. So, that's really where I've spent most of my time, even prior to joining Harvard, really understanding construction safety risk, planning, trying to deliver the best outcomes on our projects.
What drew you to the safety aspects of construction in the first place?
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? I was an environmental science major in college, but I started to work in the safety field, right? Had a couple of internships, and then that was my path from there, right? Started working in construction, worked for a couple of general contractors along the way, the Massachusetts Port Authority, which operated Logan Airport and other facilities, and then Harvard. And so safety became my passion along the way, and career kind of took off from there, and have followed that path ever since.
So you've been on the owner's side as well as on the contractor's side. Quick question, because I know obviously my listeners are working with owners all the time. What do you think were some of the biggest avoidable mistakes that contractors make when working with owners, that if they just understood that, it would really help them to be much more effective and build much better relationships?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question, Eric. I think there are so many different approaches that owners take when it comes to interacting with their general contractors and construction managers. And I think sometimes that makes it challenging, right? I know that for me at Harvard and in other places where I've worked and I've sat on the owner's side, we really always tried to take a very collaborative approach, right? We knew that when our general contractors were successful, we would be successful. And when the subcontractors were successful, we would all be successful together. So you're going to have owners who are very much involved and have significant role in oversight. You're going to have owners who kind of take a hands-off approach once they turn that site over to the general contractors. But what I would say is if you have an owner that is involved, use that to your advantage, right? Use that to help you, develop the right sort of culture on that project, and recognize that, it's an important partnership, and the owner's got something to learn from you, and you've probably got something to learn from the owner. So that's just some of the advice that I would share. But again, there's all different approaches from all different shapes and sizes of owners out there.
Yeah, that's true. So let's start then by diving into foundational safety standards. How can construction firms establish and maintain a proactive culture of safety that goes beyond just, compliance, but focuses on both leading and lagging indicators?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, for a long time, people have primarily looked at their performance through the lens of something like recordable incident rate. And as long as their recordable incident rate was, below the industry average, or it was trending in the right direction, they may have, thought of themselves as being a successful company. But, there's a lot more to it than that. It's really important to build the right type of culture and to always be thinking about ways to continue to strengthen your culture. Obviously, there's the cliches, which are entirely true, that it starts with leadership commitment, but it's also much more than just the sort of compliance type of programs, right? Do we have really robust safety programs that talk about how we're going to comply with OSHA standards and regulations, right? It's so much more than that. It's got to be about building the management systems that are going to make sure your organization is able to execute on those safety programs. Doesn't really matter how good your compliance programs are. If you don't have the systems and processes in place to make sure that you're able to execute on them, you're going to have a hard time being successful. So you really have to think about, yes, we want to look at our past performance. It is worthwhile to continue to track things like recordable rate, make sure it's trending in the right direction. We certainly want to continue to reduce the number of recordable injuries that occur on our projects. There are business reasons for that, and it's the right thing to do, right? But we also need to be looking at our overall performance in the larger picture. What is occurring on our job sites? What's occurring on our projects? There are always opportunities to continuously improve, and we have to find those, right? So that's really important.
How would you like to stop micromanaging and start leading with confidence? It's interesting, delivery methods have changed. Obviously, talking today here about technology with Dave, you can see that it's always advancing. But you know what doesn't advance that much? People. People don't change. And you know how to build projects, but leading and developing a high-performing team presents quite a different challenge. And that's where the Shift comes in. The Shift is my online leadership course that has helped transform leaders in over 25 construction companies. And it really is going to help you to shift from managing tasks and micromanaging tasks to building and leading people. There's going to be a link in the show notes, theshift.constructiongenius.com, where you can go and learn all about the online program, read some testimonials from folks who have gone through the Shift, as well as check out all the modules that are associated with it. And there's also bonuses involved with the Shift. There's 5 masterclass modules, 30 proven construction leadership lessons, 5 actionable worksheets, and a number of templates and workbooks that I use with my clients that has a total value of $3,680. And if you check that all out, you'll see that there's a tremendous amount of value involved with enrolling for the Shift and taking the course. So go check it out, learn more about it. I know you won't regret it. And now back to my interview with Dave. Let me ask you about, obviously recordable incident, that is a lagging indicator. What are some of those key leading indicators that relate to safety that a contractor should be focused on?
Yeah, so there are some leading indicators that are, generally accepted, right? How many trainings have we done for our employees? How many trainings have the employees attended? How many pre-test plans or job hazard analysis have we completed? How many inspections have we done? Things like that, right? And those are important. I really think that inspection data is incredibly powerful. If you're out in the field and you are implementing a really robust inspection program that allows you to aggregate the data over time, you're able to understand where your risks lie, where you need to improve, which contractors are performing well on your projects, which contractors need attention. And when you think about doing an overall annual evaluation of your performance at the end of each year, if not more frequently, inspection data is one set of data that is really powerful to understand where you need to improve.
How do you create a powerful inspection structure? And is that something that you see should rest just with the GC, or should the subs be involved with that as well?
Yeah, so I think ultimately it's nice to have everybody making observations and conducting inspections out on the job site, right? But if you don't have a robust program today, you can kind of start small. You've got to get the framework in place.
Yeah.
Importantly, you have to train people to go out and do inspections. There are times where organizations And maybe this is how they start, right? They focus more on quantity of inspections. But over time, you've got to start to shift away from quantity and look at the quality of the inspections. Not a lot of value in just going out in the field and pumping in a bunch of inspections if you're really not identifying the things that need attention and making sure that they get fixed and aggregating that data over time. I call it the sort of everything is awesome syndrome, right?
Yes.
If everybody's going out in the field, you know, that Lego movie, right?
Yep.
If everyone's going out in the field and saying, hey, everything's great out here, well, you don't have a very good inspection program. You're not going to learn anything from that. So start small, make sure you train people. And at a certain point, make sure you're focusing on the quality of inspections even more so than the quantity.
How do you work with, so it's like, you know, when the inspectors come on site, it's like, here come the cops, right? And, you know, many people don't necessarily always have the greatest experience with that kind of dynamic. And so how do you work with the guys and the gals in the field so that they have a sense of confidence that the inspectors are here not to catch them out, but to enable them to obviously operate safely so that everyone goes home safe at the end of the day and the company thrives?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question. That's an important part of a successful inspection program. You don't want your inspection program to be viewed as purely punitive, right?
Yeah.
Or, you know, here comes Eric or here comes Dave. What are they going to tell us we're doing wrong today? There's an important point that I want to make, which is that if you think about the level of complexity of some of these projects and how risky some of these projects are, there are a lot of great things that happen from a safety perspective and a planning perspective on every project in order for these things to get built.
Yeah.
And if your inspection program is not recognizing workers for a job well done, and it's only pointing out the things that they're doing wrong, you're going to have a problem, right? So one thing you need to do is use your inspection program to recognize employees that are executing at a high level. And then on the flip side, when you do identify those unsafe conditions or unsafe behaviors, how do you approach those things, right? Approach them as a coachable moment. It's a really important interaction that can't be replaced by any technology, right? In that moment, how do you address that with the worker? Is it punitive, or is it an opportunity to coach and teach and make sure that those same types of exposures don't occur again?
It's interesting when you say the coachable moment, because what comes to mind then is that these inspections, if we're doing them more frequently, we're then able to catch situations occurring before they become serious or severe. And then as a result of that, make them a coaching moment instead of, you know, an intervention or a rebuke. Am I on the right track there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so much to be learned from those moments, right? Both at that moment in time, it's a coachable moment with that employee, right? To talk about, hey, you know, this is why that behavior is risky. Let's talk about how you could have done that differently and coach in that moment. But with that data being aggregated, it starts to paint a picture of where a contractor or a company might have some gaps, where they might focus their efforts, how you might use that data. Let's assume that I'm a GC or a CM. How might I use that data to engage that contractor, facilitate a really important discussion, and not in a punitive sense with the contractor either, but to say, hey, I really value our partnership. It's really important to me. Here are some things that you're doing well, but here are some concerns that we have, and we'd like to talk to you about how you might improve in these areas as you go forward. That's a win-win for everybody.
How do you mitigate against garbage data?
Yeah, it's tough, right? Especially when you have a lot of data coming in. But
yeah,
I think when you sit down, you know, hopefully technology is making it easier and easier to pull those types of insights out. I know it's something that we focus on a lot here in terms of the inspection data that's collected in our platform. But to a certain extent, you've got to be able to sit down and look at the data that's being collected within your organization. There are two key things that make it pretty obvious data points to say that you're not doing quality inspections, right? Number one is, are the vast majority of our observations positive observations, right? I mean, there is some level of unwillingness to report the unsafe conditions and behaviors, and maybe that comes back to our culture. So one is, look and see quickly if you have that everything is awesome syndrome.
That's excellent.
The other thing is you need to look at what is it that your your inspectors are observing. Are they really just looking at the low-hanging fruit, like personal protective equipment and housekeeping and extension cords? And they're not looking at really the activities where the high risk comes in. So you can look at it from those two lenses. And then the last thing I would say about it is it's a really good opportunity to identify where you need to coach your own employees or train your own employees. It could be that your inspectors are not inspecting the high-risk activities because they don't feel comfortable or they don't feel like they have enough training to really be able to identify those hazards.
That's beautiful.
So that's part of it too. So when you look at that data, even at an individual inspector level or across inspectors, it might be that you need to do a better job of training your inspectors to do inspections or training them to be able to recognize hazards associated with the highest risk activities so they're comfortable.
That's interesting, right? Because you've got to have that deep technical understanding, but then you also have to have the people understanding to know how to bring up instances, how to coach people in when you do identify things that could be potentially hazardous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Eric here, and quick break just to let you know that you can go get my book, Construction Genius. It's all about simple, effective, straightforward, no BS leadership, sales, and marketing advice for construction companies. Go out to Amazon and read all the reviews. We have a ton of 5-star reviews, a couple of 4-star reviews as well, but no 3-star reviews because it's an awesome book. I tell you, you take one idea from that book and implement it into your leadership, it will completely transform the way that you lead. The book is only $19.99, so it's killer value. It's a great way for you to dive into deep understanding of what it means to be a leader in construction and improve your performance. So go out to Amazon, buy yourself a copy of the book, and now back to my interview with Dave. So what is the role of centralized real-time data in identifying high-risk contractors or processes? And then how can it be used to prevent safety instances before they occur?
So that real-time data is critical. And I'm going to kind of tie together the sort of pre-qualification aspect of contractor management with the performance data, right? You know, Highwire is in the business of helping our clients pre-qualify contractors. But we view pre-qualification as the beginning of managing that relationship and managing risk, right? As you pre-qualify a contractor, you want to understand what risks they present based on a lot of different factors, past performance, strength of their programs, and things like that, right? But once that contractor sets foot on site, as you begin to gather data about their performance, having access to that data essentially real time allows you to understand any emerging risks, address them, share feedback, and collaboratively think about how are we going to address those risks to make sure that they don't continue on this project. So it's a really important part of the overall kind of contractor management cycle that we think of. Pre-qualify them to understand their risks, make sure you have plans in place that are intended to help them be successful, and then monitor their performance while they're on site so that you can make sure that they're executing against that plan or that they're, managing and mitigating risks for those highest risk activities.
A lot of pre-qualification processes are pretty cumbersome, right? And what they can do is they can actually, at least in the minds of the subs, create barriers for collaboration that really are unnecessary. So how can that pre-qualification process be streamlined to ensure that contractors meet safety and performance standards and yet build that sense of team and collaboration from the very beginning?
Yeah, I'm going to start first with really the mindset around pre-qualification. What is your mindset? Is it a pass-fail exercise? Is it you're going to eliminate contractors from consideration? Or is your mindset more about understanding where that contractor is today on their journey, right? What risks does that contractor present? Because honestly, Eric, safety is one consideration. There are a lot of other factors that are gonna determine who you're gonna award that work to, right? We hear a lot about labor shortage in the industry. We know that there are not an infinite number of contractors out there that are available to support you on this project. And we know that people have longstanding relationships with contractors. So prequalification is not about eliminating contractors from consideration. It really is about understanding potential risk, and then having conversations with those contractors. Ultimately, over time, you want to use that process to build contractors up, help them identify opportunities, help them improve. So you can continue to build your pool of contractors and have an even larger set of available, sophisticated contractors that you can continue to work with. So mindset is a really important aspect of pre-qualification and contractor management. And in a lot of ways, it will determine what the perception of your pre-qualification process is. And what happens from there.
What examples do you have of this process taking place where, a GC or a CM is working with the subs and this collaboration has really occurred as a result of the pre-qualification process and throughout the building of the job?
Yeah, it happens all the time. And it was a big part of what I used to do at Harvard. Really, we were pre-qualifying contractors. We were the owner, right? So we decided to take ownership of that process because in a lot of ways it was our risk, right? And so we took ownership of the process. We included our GCs and CMs in that process. We established a consistent approach that everyone had to follow. And we set a sort of minimum expectation. And we said, hey, if a contractor doesn't hit this mark, it doesn't mean you can't work with them. It just means that, we need to understand how you're going to address risk, work with the contractor, and make sure they are successful. So when we first rolled it out at Harvard, there were contractors that had been working on the campus for years and years and years and had great relationships with project managers and building managers and general contractors. And what came to light is that some of those contractors really presented some significant risk based on their past performance and based on maybe a lack of sophistication from a program and management system perspective. And so there were many a times where we as the owner sat down with our general contractor and with that trade contractor, and we sat down and we had a conversation about some of the risks that we saw. And in a lot of ways, in many cases, it actually opened up that trade contractor's eyes to some of the things that they didn't really realize about their business, some of the gaps that they had. Really, that strengthened the relationship right off the bat. It set a certain level of awareness around, safety. It is important to us, right? This isn't just a check the box exercise. And it set a really great expectation around what it meant to come to work at Harvard, and that it was a collaborative experience. It was not, it wasn't coming from any other place than we want to make sure you're successful. We want to help everybody improve over time so that we protect the risk. We protect the workers. We protect the students on our campuses. We don't impact the faculty's research. We don't impact the public that was all over our campuses every day. So that, there are just numerous examples. And what we're lucky is that the clients that we work really have that same mindset around what pre-qualification is all about.
So as you go back to your experience at Harvard and you began to approach what you're describing from a systematic perspective, what did you learn in that process that you've now taken with you to Highwire, and that's helping other contractors, other CMs, other owners in terms of the dynamic that we've been discussing here?
Yeah, what I really took away is a lot of the things that I just described around the way that we did it at Harvard are the best practices that I share today when we're either talking to existing clients or when we're talking to a prospect. And that mindset of collaboration throughout the full life cycle of a relationship with a contractor is something that resonates with a lot of people. So it not only kind of formulates my approach to interacting with our clients, but it also informs the approach to where do we go with our company, with our own business, with our software to try to deliver on that vision. Thinking back on it, it's exciting to kind of be able to take all of those lessons learned from those experiences that I had and share them.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I was just thinking about how, a lot of people, when they're looking to introduce tech solutions into construction, they don't necessarily come from that background. But I'm sure that your experience working on the GC side and on the owner side has really helped Highwire in terms of understanding what contractors really need in terms of the value you're looking to deliver?
Yeah, I think it is one kind of important benefit that we have here, and I'm sort of lucky that we are a software company, right? But
Yep.
we are about managing and mitigating risk, and I do think, having lived in that world for a really long time, having a lot of experiences of successes, but also challenges and some failures along the way, it all has formed kind of the approach that I take. And I'm lucky that leadership here within Highwire also recognizes and really has adopted that vision. And that is the vision that drives kind of everything we do here. And that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's neat. So how can technology platforms enhance not only the efficiency of pre-construction processes, but also real-time decision-making during the project lifecycle?
Yeah, I think technology is really important. And you mentioned the word efficiency there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really important to note that, right? From a safety professional's perspective, technology is going to make us better at what we do. It's going to facilitate all of the things that we've talked about along the way here, right? Which is the conversations that happen based off of now having some real-time data at your fingertips. So there's all kinds of opportunities for AI, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
There are things like smart PPE that's coming out. There's
Yep.
AI-powered cameras. All of that stuff is really important. Like I said a little bit earlier, that technology is never going to replace the really important human interactions that happen out on projects, but it's going to facilitate them, and it's going to make it easier for safety professionals and everyone involved to spend their time on the most meaningful activities and actions, and spend less of their time on some of the more tedious things that we might have had to do in the past, which is manually trying to extract data from all these different places, or trying to pre-qualify contractors manually, which really takes a ton of time.
Yep.
And takes away from the most important thing, which is interacting with project teams, planning the work, executing, monitoring performance. So it's really going to facilitate, technology is really going to facilitate all different aspects of construction delivery, but it's going to make safety professionals even better at what we do.
So if I wanted to take a fresh look at my safety culture, the processes I'm using, how I'm making sure compliance is happening, what advice would you give to a contractor? Let's say 2025, they say, I'm going to focus on safety this year and really dial some of that stuff in. Give us 3 things that someone should focus on.
One of the first things is asking yourself that question: what data do I have available to me that
Mm-hmm.
allows me to understand how we're performing? And I think one thing I want to touch on, we didn't get to yet, is I want to say that, again, I think we touched on recordable rate a little bit.
Yep.
Organizations should really start asking themselves, looking beyond recordable rate, because there are some limitations to recordable rate. It can, if we really just use that as our primary measure, there are some blind spots there. There's more and more momentum in the industry around reducing that reliance on recordable rate and looking at other indicators. What I'd like to touch on right now is how many organizations have the ability to look beyond recordable rate and understand where the most high-risk exposures are occurring on their job sites. I bring this up because, we've done a great job in the industry reducing recordable rate over the last 30 years. As you probably know, fatality rates have been flat for the last 15 years in construction. So if we're going to impact fatality rates, we've got to start to take a different approach. So I would say, look inwardly in your organization and ask yourself, do I know how many events occurred on my projects that had the potential to result in a serious injury or fatality? And if you don't think you've had any of those, then I'm not sure you're paying attention, right?
Yes.
There are events, whether they're exposures or incidents or near misses, that while they didn't result in a SIF, right, a serious injury or fatality, they had the potential to.
Yeah.
And we need to start to be able to track and investigate and learn from those. So that's kind of a big takeaway going into 2025. I would encourage companies to start to think about that and move towards an approach that allows them to learn from those type of events.
So let's really dive into that then in a little more detail. As we're thinking about how I can identify the SIFs and really begin to look for those seeds that are going to grow into something much more impactful and obviously negative, where should I start?
Yeah, I'm actually going to point to a resource that I think a lot of people can go to. This is where I myself have really learned a lot about this topic. There's a group called the Construction Safety Research Alliance. They're out of Colorado, and it's very much, there's a lot of science driving this. A lot of great research has been done by that organization that has formed the basis of my thinking around this and the way we're approaching this here at Highwire. So I would really encourage people to do that. Again, Construction Safety Research Alliance, go check it out. Lots of great research there. So you've got to start to think about, how do we create a framework? How are we going to define what a SIF potential event is? We're trying to create that consistency across our client base, but start with that research, go check it out. A lot of great stuff there. Define the framework, and, obviously training is an important part of it, but, leadership needs to come to the conclusion that it's a worthwhile effort within their organization, make some commitment to starting to learn from those things, but do the research and start to understand all of the available information that's out there, because there's plenty of it.
Yeah. And we're going to have a link in the show notes to the Construction Safety Research Alliance. And it is truly a comprehensive website with a bunch of different resources that you can tap into there. So, Dave, tell us a little more about Highwire. And what I'm really curious about is, who is your ideal client and who shouldn't contact you if they're interested, even if they're interested in what we're talking about, who shouldn't contact you?
Yeah, I think so. We've touched on a lot of different aspects of kind of Highwire and what we deliver. Our primary clients are large asset owners, general contractors, and construction managers of many different sizes, and even some large specialty trade contractors. And I would sort of sum it up like this. Any organization that's hiring a significant number of contractors to support their capital projects, their construction projects, or even hiring contractors to perform maintenance type of activities in existing facilities, right? Our clients recognize that contractors are critical to their ability to, function as a business, but they also recognize that when you hire contractors, you take on a certain level of risk, and you want to understand what those risks are. So we are primarily helping clients to pre-qualify their contractors so that they can understand their risks before they award work to them or before they start work on site. But it doesn't stop there. That's the beginning, right?
Right.
Clients can also then make sure that plans are in place when contractors do present risk, and then they can monitor their performance by conducting inspections and aggregating data, tracking incidents that are occurring, categorizing events with SIF potential, and even conducting evaluations of a contractor's overall performance across many different aspects of project delivery when the contractor completes their scope of work. And if you think about it, all of that data that's aggregated over time helps you make an even better decision on the next project and have an even more focused approach to working with that contractor on future projects as well. So, for anyone out there who's recognizing that, hey, it might be time to create a more consistent and streamlined approach to pre-qualifying contractors, and who has the mindset that I've talked about a lot today, which is that pre-qualification is not a red light or a green light. It's not a pass or fail exercise. It is an exercise in understanding risk and delivering successful outcomes. Those are the folks that should really reach out to us if they're at that point and want to think about implementing a process that can help deliver some really great outcomes for them.
That's awesome. And Dave, let us know the website, how people can get in touch with you guys.
Yeah, sure. So it's highwire.com. A lot of great resources there. Certainly some mechanisms that will allow you to reach out to us to learn more or to schedule demos. So yeah, highwire.com. Check it out.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you joining us today. Thanks for your insights, Dave, and I do wish you all the best.
Yeah, thanks so much, Eric. Appreciate the really thoughtful questions, and it was a great conversation.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Thank you for listening to my interview with Dave today. Go out to highwire.com to learn more about his business and check out the Construction Safety Research Alliance. The link is in the show notes. And finally, don't forget about my course, The Shift. That course will really transform your leadership, and you have to take it. It's tremendously cost effective. All you have to do is go out to theshift.constructiongenius.com, learn all about the program. There's a ton of different resources on there so that you can get completely comfortable with what the shift is all about, and then enroll yourself and your leaders. You won't regret it. It's 100% money back guaranteed. If you don't like it, if it doesn't provide you value, just contact me and I will refund all of your money with a smile on my face. But you know what? I know you're going to get value. So go out and check that out. All right. Thanks again for listening today, and I'll catch you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes, share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit, and always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity, and to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.